Hey all, we're back for another glossary video. This one was specifically requested and I'm going to go over challenge rating. If you're new to this series, the idea is just to explain unexplained fundamentals of the game, essentially. Now, there is a forum post that goes over this in a little more detail from when this was first added to the game. I will be linking that in the description, but there's a lot of math involved in this, and you are going to see math in this video, but I'm going to try and break it down a little bit more just to make it a little clearer. So, challenge rating was something that was added back in the famous 12.0 patch to convert a lot of the statistics and abilities in this game over to diminishing returns. And what that effectively means is that before 12.0, statistics like critical rating functioned on a 0 to 100% chance. And if you had a base crit chance of 30%, and then you had a number of other modifiers that added up to another 70% crit chance, you would land a crit on every single hit because 30 plus 70 is 100. Post diminishing returns, that 30% is actually the product of some other number, and then the bonuses that used to add up to 70 are some other number that are then added together and fed through a formula, and you might get a very high chance to crit, like over 90%, but it won't get to 100 anymore. Challenge rating is a number that gets fed into a formula to reflect the fact that if you are facing a champion of higher rank and rarity, it is going to be harder for those numbers to be converted into a very high number. Like, let's say you're just aiming for a 50% crit rate. If you are facing a 6-star rank 4 defender, you are going to need more raw critical rating to get there than if you were facing a 4-star. And so what we're going over today is the math behind that concept. So first, it's worth just a quick overview of what stats are actually affected by challenge rating, because it is not all of them. It is not base attack, it is not base health. The forum post that I have included here also mentions armor penetration, block penetration, and critical resistance. Thankfully, all of those were removed from this whole mechanic here, because when they were included, that is a big part of what caused the outcry surrounding 12.0, because it just made the game really, really punishing and unfun. So as of now, it's just these 6 statistics that you see in front of you that are affected by challenge rating. So if you are facing a rank 4 defender versus a rank 3 defender, their armor, physical resistance, energy resistance, block proficiency, crit rating, and crit damage will all be increased. When you are facing a rank 4 defender instead of a rank 3 defender, your critical rating, your crit damage, your block proficiency, your physical and energy resistance, assuming you have any, your armor rating, all of these will be slightly lowered because of this calculation. And so it's that calculation that we're going to take a look at in this video. And so here's the math. This is a very generalized form of the formula that is used here. So on the top, we just have x. The only thing in the numerator of this fraction is the statistic we're looking at. If you have that 100 critical rating, that's where it goes. The 100 is the x. CR is the challenge rating of the opponent. Notice that that is in the denominator, which means that as challenge rating goes up, the final number, your actual critical rating as a percentage, goes down. And also, we just have a constant here. This is something that is just core to the game. That K, that constant, is the same absolutely everywhere. It effectively just represents how aggressively the returns diminish in this diminishing returns conversion that happens in the game. So know that that's there, it affects the curve, but it's not something you have to worry about changing from character to character. So to look at some very simple examples, let's just assume that our challenge rating is 5. That's it. And the constant k is 2. And we're going to compare what happens when we change that challenge rating of 5 to a challenge rating of 6. So if we look at just x equals 1, we see that when the challenge rating is 5, that gives us a 1/8. Let's think of this as 1/8 chance to crit, or a 1/8 reduction in incoming energy damage. If we're facing somebody with a challenge rating of 6, then that 1/8 drops to 1/9. So it's not a huge reduction. That's 12.5% down to 11.1%, but it is a significant reduction. The next row here shows what raw number you need to get to an effective number of 1/2. So if you're aiming for, let's say, a critical rating of 50%, on the left with our challenge rating of 5, you only need that raw number of 7. On the right with our challenge rating of 6, the raw number required goes up to 8. And this is something that actually improves with rank. Because when a rank 5 apocalypse, let's say, faces a rank 5 defender, that's supposed to have the same crit rating as when a rank 3 apocalypse faces a rank 3 defender. The difference is when a rank 3 apocalypse faces a rank 3 versus a rank 5 defender, because that rank 3 apocalypse will still only have the crit rating in its kit that was calibrated to give it a certain crit rating against the rank 3, but because the rank 5 has a higher challenge rating, meaning that the number in the denominator has gone up, but the raw number for the attacker, for Apocalypse, has not gone up, the effective crit rating goes down. So when you rank up a champion and all of their stats increase, it's to bring them to parity with champions at that same rank and rarity. But against other champions, against the champions that they used to be fighting, it will look like an effective stat increase. Because if you are primarily facing rank 3 defenders on the battlefield, and suddenly you have a rank 4 apocalypse, well then your crit rating, your X, has now gone up, but the challenge rating of the people that you're attacking has stayed the same, leading to a higher effective crit rate. And so when I talk about how different characters scale with ranking, when I talk about how much their crit rate, their crit damage, their block proficiency, those things scale with their ranking, this is what I'm talking about. And then the final column just represents that if you get to a sufficiently high number, the differences kind of vanish. Neither 1000 over 1005 nor 1000 over 1006 is actually a 100% statistic. That's not a 100% crit rate. That's not a 100% resistance to energy damage per se. But both are very, very close, and the difference is a lot more negligible than the difference between 1/8 and 1/9 per se. Now, one thing that can cause confusion in this whole realm of the game is how negative statistics work. So Mr. Fantastic has roughly 1000 energy resistance, which translates to roughly a 30% resistance to energy damage. Wiccan, who was just released, has about 900 negative physical resistance when he doesn't have any spells up. But that is like a 75% damage increase for him. So why is that 30% when it's positive and so much more when it's negative? And that's because when you put the negative on both the numerator and the denominator, in the denominator you have numbers actually canceling out. So if we look at these results right here, you'll see that. We have the same left-hand conversion that we had on the last slide, 1 to 1/8, 7 to 1/2, but when we leave the challenge rating the same, and start looking at negative numbers, then when x equals 1, you see that our result is actually a decrease of 1/6. So 1/6 is about 17% versus that 12.5% of 1/8. So already you see a magnification because we're looking at negative numbers. Additionally, to get to a reduction of 1/2, so let's say taking 50% more energy damage, you only need to get to an actual statistic here of 2.33 relative to the 7 that you need for that same increase when things are positive. And then, of course, as the numbers get large enough, the differences kind of go away. But hopefully that helps illustrate why, when you're looking at negative armor, negative resistances, things get a little funky at first if you don't understand this. So now let's put aside the test numbers and look at what the actual formula in-game is. The constant that Kabam has decided to use for their specific diminishing returns, the one that they want in the game, is 1500. So that basically tells us how quickly the returns diminish, and it also kind of gives us a fixed point in the statistics around which everything else is put in context. And that'll make more sense on the next slide. So X is still the statistic. This is the raw number where you see like crit rate is 516 or something on a champion's page. CR is still the challenge rating, but notice that it's actually multiplied by 5. If we're looking at a challenge rating of 100 versus a challenge rating of 110, that's actually turned into a difference of 50 points in the denominator for the actual conversion that Kabam uses. So now to get into some uglier examples. So I just plugged in here the 1500 constant that, like I said, the entire game uses, and then I plugged in challenge ratings of 120 and 140. So 120 represents a rank 2 6-star or a rank 5 5-star. So kind of like what used to be the gold standard, right? A lot of us have quite a few of these. And then a challenge rating of 140 is a rank 4 6-star. So currently, as of the publication of this video, this is the best of the best. And so what you're seeing here is if you have an attacker with these raw stats, X, then when you are facing a rank 4 6-star on defense versus when you are facing a rank 5 5-star, this is the difference. So if you have a critical rating of 500, then your crit rating of 19.23% drops to 18.52%. So about not even a full percentage point. So this is pretty minor. We're looking at 0.7 of a percentage point there. If you have a crit rating of 1000, the decrease is actually a bit more marked. It's a full percentage point. We have 1.01% that it drops there. At 1500, it is 1.13 percentage points. So it actually goes up a little bit how much you feel the difference as the number increases, but then at some point it does drop off again. Because you'll notice that if we jump ahead to a raw number of 5,000, we're looking at a difference of now less than 1 percentage point again, only 0.98 decrease. And so on the previous page, when I said that 1500 puts all the other numbers in context, I was talking about that inflection point in there. There is one specific number, which I'll admit I did not put in the mathematical work to find. Maybe somebody wants to tell us in the comments. But there's one specific number in there where the difference between challenge ratings stops growing and starts shrinking again, and the fact that Kabam chose that 1500 determines where that number is. And so this is how challenge rating affects these various statistics in game. But I do want to just take a moment and point out that these are pretty small differences. We're looking at something that averages about 1% And in this case, we were looking across 2 challenge rating increases. This was a rank 2 6-star versus a rank 4 6-star. So that's a lot of progression. So you don't have to worry about like, oh my god, if I'm facing a rank 4 and I get hit, it's just gonna like auto crit. That's not what I'm saying. But these things do improve a little bit every time you rank up a champion, and they improve a little bit every time your opponent ranks up. Because, like I said, when you rank up, your raw statistics improve relative to your opponent's challenge rating. And if your opponent is of a higher rank, then your raw statistics are being filtered through a higher challenge rating, and end up as smaller numbers. The same also works in reverse. If your opponent only has a given crit rating, then if you're using a rank 4 attacker versus a rank 3 attacker, their critical rating will effectively be reduced because it's being filtered against your higher challenge rating. That is what people mean when they talk about how characters scale with rarity. When I talk about ranking up a character, giving them some effective crit resistance, that's what I'm talking about. When I talk about their block proficiency going up, again, that's what I'm talking about. Against somebody of the same rank, it actually didn't really go up. But if you're facing the same opponent that you were last week, then the number will have effectively gone up. So it's a little trippy because you're keeping track of several variables at a time, and again, the ultimate differences are pretty small. But I think this is an important thing to understand, especially if you start talking about the finer points of the end game and which champions need the rank up when you're trying to decide where to use your precious resources. This is the kind of thing that helps really come down and break those ties. So hopefully you found this helpful. Hopefully I helped make it slightly less boring. It is still fractions at the end of the day. But let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next in this series. And I know that this will also come out on Father's Day in the US, so happy Father's Day to all of our fathers out there. And I will catch y'all next time. Thanks so much for watching, and take care.